Welcome back to your Professional Analyst Training Level 1, Semester 3. We're going to go beyond the generic today. And it's safe to say that Rao Uruhu, founder of the Human Design System, really knew what he was talking about when it came to his interpretation. So we are going to stick very close to source today to ensure that you are not left behind when it comes to the advancement and furtherance of the knowledge, because one of the agreements that you sign when you become a certified analyst is that you will continue your education. And I've taken that quite seriously over the last 14 years of diving into the depths of human design. And what I've found is that there is some discrepancy, really particularly amongst teachers of the knowledge. And anytime there is a question, I find it's personally very helpful to go back to source and exactly look at what Ra said. And you might hear me paraphrase or expand upon things. This is just my way in order to help you learn what is true for you. Remember, you are your own authority. So I'm always going to ask you to please source back into what is it like for you. I'm not the one here telling you what to do or how it is for you. Because remember, when we look at the human design system, one of the tenets of the truth and the core is that truth is individual. So when we look at the mechanics of conditioning, just because someone says it is so, doesn't mean it's so across the board. However, when we go deep into the mechanics of how Ra taught, we see some core aspects of mechanical truths that you can absolutely source into and experiment with for yourself first, and then do your best to explain it to maybe a fellow student, and then practice and play with friends and family, whoever it is that comes your way that is open to your experimentation on them. And then you work with clients. So it's a process of first personal, your own process, and then who is that's in your life that you can either observe or talk to. So your friends, your family, your trusted confidants, your fellow students. These are the people that you want to practice with first before you hang out your shingle and attempt to do this kind of work. Remember, this is advanced. So in order to grasp it completely, there is one whole semester in the differentiation degree program at the IHDS, the International Human Design School. And this is where this material is actually sourcing from Ra's advanced mechanics, so that we really get to the foundation of what's inspirational for me when it comes to how this works is, what's it like for you? What's it like for you, your path that is true? So when we look at the undefined shadow of the head center's inspirational functioning, we're looking at making mental decisions from the questions, from the pressure, by thinking about things that do not matter to you. Now, that is a very huge generic. We know that the strategy of the not self of the open head center and the way that open head center affects the mind makes decisions as far as its own internal questions, that the way the open head center does that is it turns the mind toward thinking about things that simply do not matter. And when he says things that simply do not matter, he's not really saying that everything that the mind is processing is going to be things that do not matter, but there is no discernment. So no discernment, meaning weighing this versus that. It's all just pressure. And the other thing is that the many things that the open head center can process may turn out to be of genuine value to others. So two sides of the coin. Head center can be processing pressure that actually doesn't matter. And yet, to you, it may be a source of inspiration for others. Why? Well, mechanically, I am me, you are you. We come together in our specificity, and in our discourse, we find what is true. So if I amplify you, your abstraction or your logical process, or I connect with you relative to your rationalizations, and here I am with my mysterious inner truth pressure, we come together in awareness and we can commune through our difference and through our specific differentiated perspective, finding what is true in communion. That is the true awakening and awareness of a nine-centered human being. When it comes to outer authority, this is what is incredibly inspirational. And so what we're really talking about is that the open head center is trying to move the way mind makes decisions by thinking about things that do not matter to you. And of course, that leads the mind to decide to do this or that based on something that does not have to do with the integrity of you as a being, your differentiation. Because there is no differentiation in total openness. It's wisdom, it's learning potential. So in other words, that means then that it is going to be conditioned, those questions. So the undefined head, shadows and questions, making mental decisions, thinking about things that do not matter to you, that's a real deep generalization. And in your courses that you take with me, I would prefer that you speak to the specificity of a human being, and you will recognize why by the time we end this particular series or sessions. Because when we're looking at talking in that language about the way in which the head center operates, that not self strategy, thinking about things that don't matter to you. If somebody says to you, can you do something? And you say, no, I'm thinking about something that doesn't matter. That's a real deep generalization. No, I'm too busy. I'm running around trying to figure things out. You know, I've got this question and I'm trying to figure out why, or the doubts, or the confusion, whatever it happens to be, because you can see that there are three gates that come out of the head center. Pressure, pressure, mental pressure in the form of questions. And you see that the 63rd and the 64th gate, those two gates that are not activated in this example are going to be not yours physically, mentally, spiritually. They're not yours authentically from the natal design. Okay, natal design. Now, mechanically, what you see happening is that when if we were looking at this as your chart, when you have a gate pointing to that open space on the other side, the 64 being receptive, your mind interprets it as your confusion, 64, gate of confusion. Whereas if you have openness on the other side, your mind actually takes it in as a transpersonal process, blaming the other. This is the other person's doubt or the outside world's doubt. This is collective after all. So it's going to be about non-specificity in relationship to you. It's not you, it's not true. Now that's, again, generality relative to you and your life process. What if we're now looking at layering on the Chiron return cycle over your natal body graph? And now we have activations coming in. Well, that's good conditioning, absolutely necessary to fulfill your life's work. Is it truly yours now? No, it's still transit. It's still part of the process of development of wisdom, because wherever you are open, there is a potentiality for wisdom as an outer authority. Openness, outer authority, wisdom potential. Okay, so you think of this as I, and you think of this as other. When I say this, I'm pointing to openness and receptivity that feels incredibly personal, because the harmonic gate on the other side is pointed at that 64. So you think with the I, the ego I, the mind, the I, that thinks, therefore it thinks it is. And it's not true. It is a collection of distortions and conditionings that you think of as you. And so over here, when there's a channel, a whole channel that is open in your own design, the other person, you take in their doubts, their answers, and then you're running around based on their inspiration, which is not true to you, not true and not you. So what do? Follow strategy and authority, not just by paying lip service, but by experimentation and seeing how it works. Thanks, Ra. Anything that is open is subject to conditioning in your chart. The gates of a center represent the nuances of the way in which the actual mental conditioning is operating. So let me rephrase that in a little bit to make it more specific, as in gates that you have a planetary aspect, a life aspect within an undefined center. That's an aspect of your differentiation. It is not self, it is true to you, but it's you in relational context to others or life, because that is how this particular center, in this case, the head center, will turn on, light up all the time when it gets conditioned is with that gate specificity. So in this example, let's say you've got an open 63rd gate and you're thinking about doubts that do not matter. In other words, it becomes something that you can target as a specific because it's open, it's receptive, there's no planet there. It is not specific to you. It is conditioning that isn't true or authentic or real or honest or in integrity with the sovereign nature of what you came here to be. And this, I'm being very specific, and I'm going to repeat myself as much as possible to the point where you'll probably get bored of me saying it over and over and over again, because this is the thing I see so many people getting wrong, according to Ra. Thinking about things that don't matter, thinking about those confusing things, or those doubtful things that actually truly do not matter to you, that are a waste of your time and energy, which equates to money, and nobody likes to waste money, hey, especially in today's day and age. So when we're talking about even the head center with its limitation of only 3 gates, we're talking about the influence of conditioning that is leading us to think about things that don't matter. And we have to see it offers a lot more conditioning than just that. It's thinking about the doubts that don't matter. It's thinking about all those confusing things that don't matter. So at this level of the knowledge, you're an analyst. By the end of the semester, Ra says you're an analyst. Okay, I'm going to treat you as a colleague as soon as you finish PTL 1 semester 3, because you are an analyst, even though you might not have your stamp of approval from the International Human Design School as far as certified. You are still, according to Ra, according to me, you are an analyst and you can do this work. It's not LYD though. So thinking about things that don't matter doesn't cut it in my book. What is it specifically that this human being is thinking about that doesn't matter? Again, it doesn't matter those confusions. It doesn't matter those doubts. What truly matters in this person's design, that dormant gate activation that turns on, that lights up, that gets triggered with why. It's the big why in the sky, 61, the mysteries of life, the pressure to question, the pressure to find rationalizations of this inner truth. This is this person's Jupiter. That means then it's a personal rule. It's a law. It's a protection mechanism for their own mental pressure. What is truly inspiring? What's natural for this person to attune to plan for, to naturally question? This is their differentiation. Even though it is not defined, because technically, definition requires a full channel. It requires planets on either side of the gates, okay? This is not defined. It's in an undefined center. Therefore, we call it dormant. It is a gate activation that is dormant in the natal design, okay? It is part of the nature of that being. It is what is part of their differentiated imprint. Differentiated. Ra says, as a matter of fact, the only thing it's not thinking about that doesn't matter is what is there in the 61, because the 61st gate is active. It's a dormant activation. Dormant question. It's a very specific shadow strategy that comes alive when the person is being conditioned through transits, through people, through the crystallized principle of this body carrying memory deep within the cells. So you spend your first 7 years attached to mama or papa, or conditioned by grandpa or grandma. You are going to get the conditioning imprint crystallized in the cells because you spend your most formative years in their aura, in their presence. And then what? It sets up the patterning for you to doubt everything going into the future if you take on their conditioning. It sets up the pattern for you to be confused if you take on their conditioning, and neither of those things truly matter to you. What's truly of worth and of value to you to ponder, to question, is the why in the sky. 61. Okay, so in other words, what you have is a head center that is creating in its openness a not-self strategy, a shadow, adaptive, conditioned strategy, but a not-self strategy that is quite specific in that sense, very specific. What this means then is that as analysts, we have the capability to go beyond the generic and to truly express the wonderment and beauty, the awe and magnificence of what it is to be a 9-centered human being. Why? Because self-realization, self-reflective consciousness, that is what we are here for. Differentiated, unique perspectives. And the beginning exercise here is that from now on, when you are looking at a chart and you're looking at the not self, I want you to look at the way in which the not self operates to go beyond that generic. A not self gate is open. There is no planetary activation nor fixing. That's the not self gate. Instead of thinking about confusing things that don't matter, that's the not self gate. Instead of thinking about doubts going into the future that don't matter, that's the not self gate that is transpersonal, meaning between you and the other. Here with the 61, it's thinking about things that do matter. Why? That's your personal rule with this person's chart. So when we look at this thinking about things that are confusing, we know that it's about the past, it's experiential, it's relational because of what we know about 64, where it is in the mandala wheel. It's in the quarter of duality, purpose fulfilled through bonding. One of the rare places where there's a gate plus a gate, harmonic in the channel, but right next to each other in the wheel. So you know then that this is a very heavy relational pressure to make sense of what happened. So what would be different? What can be true? In other words, to begin to look at it, in terms of what makes, for example, the head center as far as different, if somebody had a 63 gate activation as well. Oh, that's quite different because now we have a true self-pondering as far as the doubts going into the future, depending on where it comes from, the personality or the design. So in other words, here would be a head center that would be very focused on thinking about confusing things that don't matter and not also thinking about those doubtful things because they have that. And what happens when you have that? You take it for granted. You can't see yourself clearly. You overlook it because you're pondering, you as in the conscious witness personality construct that is built upon the contamination of the openness. In other words, there are nuances to the way in which this works depending on your differentiated design or whatever your clients is, your friends, families, familiars, whatever analysis work you are doing with whatever chart. So when you look in the center at the 61, which is the conditioning receptor, okay? Hanging 61, we had law and protection, your personal rule consciously because it was black. This conditioning receptor, because it's receptive to conditioning on the other side, as well as the two channels, two gates that are there, potentially filtering the consciousness data stream of the transits or the people. That conditioning receptor of the 61 is always the fixed gate. Ra would also call it a fixed gate in an open or an undefined center. So here in that, one moment. Here, where you're looking at this fixedness, again, this does not play into the not self mind. I repeat, the fixedness, the hanging gate does not play into the not self mind, but it plays into the way in which the mind is going to feed the ajna, the way the pressure is going to be captured by the ajna because it's being delivered by something inside of you, your genetic potential that is true, activated, fixed, turned on. Now, it is, of course, going to be conditioned by a 24 coming in, whether it be transits or people. Remember, transits, manifestors, reflectors. I'm going to take that in a much deeper way than projectors and generators who take in conditioning more from people, not so much transits. You're a projector, you're with somebody, that person is going to be your sole focus, not transits, person. Okay, every type is going to take this in differently. And you're going to be conditioned by the 24. It's going to be delivered in a very specific way, and it doesn't always work. Oh boy, when you've got this as an experience and as an awareness, you know it for truth. It doesn't always work.